All right, boys. So, and two ladies, I ran out of time and light. So, you have to make this pretty quick. So, this is my Energizer setup. I have here's the battery, deep cycle battery. I believe the sign said that it was 69 amp hour. I remember doing the math, and it basically came out that that was enough power to keep my fence running for about 9 days with no external charging whatsoever. I have here just a 20 amp hour solar panel. This was just a kit off of Amazon. Chinesium panel, Chinesium charge controller right here. This is a IntelliShock 10, I think it is. It's the 1 joule model. I like these. They don't break. There's nothing to go wrong with them. That said, they're a pain in the butt to use during the light. Basically, to check your fence voltage. Got one of these. Got my fence hooked up to my grounding rod right there. Hooked up to my fence. Put it on, and you can see the flashing. I'm currently at 7,000 volts. That's overkill. Sheep will stay in with about 3,000 volts. Same with cattle in general. So this is the Premier One Permanent Plus, I want to say it is. So 7 foot in between the fence posts as opposed to 10 foot. I think that's 9 horizontal wires. The bottom wire is non-conductive, that black twine. Everything else is conductive. They got these jumper cables here on the sides. You can kind of see back there, I got some of my sheep. This paddock, I have both sheep and goats in. Now, there's a lot of reasons that's not ideal. The sheep and the goats, they eat different things. However, in this context, it works out because, as you can see, this is the back 40 of my property, quite frankly. And I don't normally spend time back here. I didn't run the animals back here much last year. However, with drought as it has been, I try to stockpile forage for my animals to eat over winter as opposed to buying in hay. In order to do that, you gotta get your animals off of your forage 90 days before your last frost. For me, that means 90 days before first frost. And so that means 90 days before about mid-October. But I'm giving it a little extra. It'll be closer to 120 days, but that's mainly because we've had such terrible, terrible rain. One advantage to running the goats and sheep together that I have noticed is that the goats will grab a bush or tree, especially autumn olive, willow, things like that have a little bit, they'll grow tall, but they have fairly weak stems. They'll grab it and they'll drag it to the ground, and then the sheep will come over and help hold it down, and they'll all graze it totally bare. And that's good for me because, I mean, I've got plenty. These, I think these are saplings. This might be actually a persimmon here, but I've got a lot of autumn olive. I've got a lot of willow. Both of those, there were questions about worming. Autumn olive and willow are both good wormers. They'll eat the forage is totally edible. They actually really enjoy it, and it helps clear worms out of their system. In terms of natural wormers, they're basically 3 or 4 different things. Yeah, you can see that's Angie, our Angora Nubian cross. And yeah, they'll do stuff like that, and it'll push the tree down in some instances. This actually might cause a problem because they might push that down over the fence. I'm probably going to break that stem here as soon as I turn off the camera. But anyway, other things, Katahdin, San Croix, they will straight up eat oak leaves, even when they've dried and fallen off the tree. the tannins in those will kill worms. Three things I know of that are basically that kill worms. Tannins, astringency, and lye. And I think they work for different reasons. I'm not entirely sure. Someone was mentioning pumpkin seeds. There's a woman who is a good friend of ours who's in her late 40s, early 50s, I believe. And she's been keeping sheep and goats for probably 30 years, on and off. She was raised in USSR, Lithuania. And what they would do there is tobacco. Shred up a little bit of leaf, provide it to sheep and goats, free choice. The nicotine totally clears out any worms or parasites in their system. Another one I've heard is lye. It is, I think it's saponifying, because I've heard this of both lye. Yucca root is another one. Yucca root is also saponifying. You can use it for like a shampoo, but you can also boil it. And I've seen some people make like granola balls out of molasses, yucca root, and oats or something like that. So if you're wanting to keep sheep, you have pretty much a couple of options. Number one, you use something like this where it's the electric netting. That's the neighbor's dogs. They're well chained up, so they're not a problem, but still makes me jump a bit, especially in the dark. But anyway, in order to keep them safe, predators won't cross this. Once it's electrified, predators hit it, they go their own way. I have yet to lose an animal to predators. I've yet to have an animal mauled. We don't really have coyotes here. I'm not sure why. I see them roadkilled in the general area, but for some reason there are no coyotes in our specific neighborhood. But we do occasionally have stray dogs, which are a pretty big problem. I did have, on one instance, last year, middle of winter, very dark, and it was, or actually 2 years ago now, I'd mentioned that you can get at the farm store 7.5 amp hour, 12 volt batteries, and don't use them. Just don't use them. They burn out on me over winter. There are two ways that they burn out. So unless there's a connection, unless there's a fault where, some grass or tree or something is touching the wire and then touching the ground, then you have current running flow. If there's no connection, no voltage is used. No amps are used. But once you make the connection, you can, it'll start passing energy through. What will burn out a battery faster than you would believe is ice storms. If you get ice storms, ice coats on the wire, presses the wire to the ground, and then you have very high transference of energy because water is great at conducting electricity. You will burn out a battery like fast, extremely fast. That's why I moved to using the deep cycle. The other thing is deep cycle has a 5-year warranty. Farm batteries have no warranty. So people are asking about whether they'd eat like brush and stuff. You saw our rams eating some blackberries earlier. All right, I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to get the video going again just a bit to show you some of the area that they're working on. You can see here, these are our goats. They're going after the roses, and on the exact opposite side, you have the sheep going at it just as hard. They'll strip all of the leaves off of this. They'll eat some of the more tender end twigs. They're not going to go after the main branch, but they'll strip it down to, they'll make it bare. There will be no leaves on there tomorrow, most likely. Now, this is not best practices in terms of grazing. I'm hitting this area really hard because the forage is just junk. So my goal is to reseed it. So one other thing that is notable is there's it's not clover, but it's very, very similar. Nitrogen fixer called Lespedeza. it is also a wormer. The term is helmetic. Oh, man, my camera doesn't like it, so it turned off the flash, so now you just get audio. It's a helmetic or anti-helmetic, I don't remember. It's one of the two. Basically, it means that it's a wormer. That would be that's another one. I'm going to try and seed into the pasture because it's both nitrogen fixing and a wormer. The other thing, one other trick is one of the other reasons I give them the charcoal, like I mentioned, lye, which is basically just boiled ash, is it works as a wormer. My charcoal that I burn myself, I put it out with the hose and I shove it into a bucket. If it's, I'm sure there's still ash there. I don't know if it's enough to make a difference in terms of worming the animals, but it's there. It's probably doing something. I don't think it's a huge factor, but and I'll also say what I'm saying here about worming, I've never had to worm. Goats, sheep. I will say this property did not have animals on it, so there's not necessarily a heavy parasite load when we bought it. Previous owners kept some horses, but otherwise they brush hogged 90% of the property just to keep the weeds and stuff down. So it's the only worms that we've gotten here would have been on deer. And I believe the worms from deer can transfer to sheep or goats, but it's not a huge problem. Yeah, I mean, you can hear them crunching away at the rows right next to me. Sorry, I can't see it. But anyway, I'll be on and probably answering questions later. One other thing is something I'm trying right now, and I don't know how successful I'm being so far, is I'm trying to mix seeds in with their mineral rations. And the reason being, I was reading some folks saying that if you want an area to increase in how much clover's in it, try and time passing through so that the clover is at seed stage. So that means that you're gonna miss out on the protein benefits of clover for that pass through, and probably for the year, because once clover goes to seed, it doesn't really grow back. Oh hey, phone decided to turn the light back on. There you go. But when you can already see, I mean, they've stripped like half the leaves off of this rose bush right here. But I'm trying to mix in seed into their mineral ration to try and get them to basically plant seed by pooping it out. Now, I think this is primarily going to work for what are generally considered hard coat seeds. These are the seeds that they'll say one way you can improve germination is by either soaking it briefly in carbonic acid or by taking a file to break the seed membrane so that water can penetrate. So I was trying to do this with turnips and clover using uncoated seed. I would not do that with coated seed. But especially in this area, I'm basically trying to get the animals to graze pretty low, and then I'm going to come back in and seed behind them, but also mixing seed into their mineral ration. I don't think I've had success with the turnips. I'm planning on trying to do okra this way next year. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I'll try and answer any questions, go through the chat as I can. But we're a talkative lot, so we'll see. So that's about it. And yeah,